So for those of you who have been following our channel, you'll know that Trevor and I harvested a bear a few weeks ago, and we rendered a whole bunch of fat to make this beautiful lard. The other day I made biscuits, and as promised, today I'm going to make an apple pie and show you how I do it. So this recipe that I use will be to make apple pie, but I wanted to mention that it actually could be used to make any type of pie. Thanksgiving is coming, and I've always preferred apple pie over pumpkin pie, but there's absolutely no reason why you could not use this recipe for a lovely pumpkin pie as well. So these are the ingredients you're going to need for the crust. You're going to need a little bit of baking powder. I have apple cider vinegar. You could use regular vinegar if you didn't have apple cider, sea salt or kosher salt, some unbleached all-purpose flour, and the lard. I'm going to measure 3 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of baking powder. Place it into this bowl, and then I'm going to cut in with a pastry cutter a cup of this beautiful bear lard. And I'm going to cut it until it is sort of a grainy, sandy kind of texture. Word of advice when using lard, it's better to use it when it's nice and cold. It'll cut into the flour much more effectively. I'm using the bear lard, but you can also use Crisco, Tender Flake, something like that as well. Next, we're going to lightly beat this egg and add a teaspoon of the vinegar and 5 tablespoons of the cold ice water. And then we're going to add it to our flour and lard and mix it up until it's just combined. So the consistency of this is that it's quite soft, but not overly sticky at all. So it's too soft to work with. So I'm going to now divide it into 2, wrap it in saran wrap, and then put it in the fridge for at least an hour, just so it can firm up, and then it'll be much more workable. So while the pastry dough is firming up in the fridge, I wanted to just speak quickly about some of the apples that I like to use. Today I have some ambrosia apples, some smitten apples, envy apples. I essentially use a mixture of apples actually. The only apples that I do tend to stay away from when I'm making apple pie are the Macintosh apples, just because they tend to be a bit soft. So I use about 4 cups of sliced apples per pie. It sort of depends on if you're making a deep dish pie or not. The one I'm going to make today is sort of a medium dish pie, if you will. Apples are sliced, and now I add some white sugar, some brown sugar, some cinnamon, some nutmeg to taste. It just totally depends on how sweet you like it. I usually use about 1/2 cup of sugar. I also add a little bit of flour to my apples, just so that when they're cooking, the sauce that they're in will thicken up a little bit as well. So the time has come now to roll out our pie dough. I'm going to start with rolling out 1/2, and then I will put the dough into this pie plate. If this is too big, I have a tinfoil one that I can use as well that's a little bit smaller. I'll then fill it with some apples, roll out the other half, and put it on top. So I like to roll the dough in between 2 either wax papers or parchment paper. I find that that works well, doesn't stick. And then we place this on top of our pie plate. I like to brush the bottom with a little bit of egg white just to keep the dough a little bit firmer. It doesn't get soggy, I think. And we'll fill it with our apples. Now we'll roll the other half. take this and top it on top, put it on top of here. Now what I like to do is I go around and I just try to snip off the excess amount. Now I'll show you how I flute it. Essentially what I do is I take the two ends and I roll them underneath. And I go all the way around, kind of making a bit of a crust, if you can see it. Now I go around and I just flute the top of it just to make it look a little bit fancy. I just basically take my two fingers and my thumb and I just go around the entire top of it like so. And then take a knife and I vent it in a couple spots just to let the steam out when it's cooking. I brush the top with a little bit more egg white so that it browns nicely. Sprinkle a little brown sugar on top. A little cinnamon. Nutmeg. So here we have it. It's ready to go into the oven at 375 for about 45 to 50 minutes. Smells amazing. I'm extremely happy with how this turned out. From my house to yours, happy Thanksgiving.